This is CrossfireX. We're here on Xbox Series S, taking a look at this experience that features a free-to-play multiplayer and a premium single-player experience. So for now, we're showing off the campaign to start this off, and then you will be able to, right now, if you want to, jump to the multiplayer portion to hear about that, or you can continue to get context into what the single player has to offer on the Series S. So I should mention first off that there are two components to this experience in the single player, and the experience is handled initially by Remedy, which is kind of interesting. If you know what Remedy does, they make some really fantastic and unique experiences, especially when it comes to campaigns and whatnot. So for this, we have two parts: Operation Catalyst, Operation Spectre. Catalyst is about just under 2 hours in length, whereas Operation Spectre is about an hour and a half. They do work together and tell a cohesive overall story, but you can just play them kind of standalone if you'd like, and they sort of have their own sort of finished off narrative as well. There are collectibles to hunt and no Xbox achievements to earn, which is a little bit weird. So if you do dive into it, you know, only the multiplayer portion has achievements, and it's a little weird that the campaign doesn't. That doesn't factor into my review scores to any degree, but I thought it was something that is worth mentioning. So what are we getting here on the Series S, as I'm sure many are aware? And do keep in mind that the campaign and the multiplayer portions of this experience actually do have different visual settings that are present to them. So cool, so we can go to start, and we can go to the options, and we can see that we get a number of different gameplay choices. But when we go over to visual, there's no actual selections that are present. So unlike the Series X, where you're allowed to choose between two options, this is just set. You can turn off film grain and motion blur if you'd like. So we should be getting something like 1080p at 60 FPS here as the style setup. It is highly stylistic, but gameplay-wise, it feels sort of something like a shooter from, like, you know, the 2000s, the late 2000s, kind of like the Call of Duty 4 era, but with a modern shine and coat of paint to it, which is kind of neat. So if you like that sort of style and that throwback aesthetic, I think you actually might find this one to be quite enjoyable. And it's okay. It's alright. The story is nothing groundbreaking, nothing insane, but it does have some fun twists, some fun turns. And it's got some surprises along the way that I actually think some will find quite neat. It's very cinematic focused, so it kind of blends in and out of cutscenes, and it all loads basically like instantly, but you know, there are some loading segments in order to start stuff, and it's kind of neat. So we're just doing a hardcore hardwired segment right here. And that's kind of our sniper characters. See, we have multiple characters that make up our team. In this first segment, it's a little bit different. You're switching between perspectives. But in the second one, you're kind of just playing as a fixed perspective, which is interesting. And again, it's a very different set of campaigns. This one is about a team kind of figuring things out, and the second one is about kind of an individual finding their place. There's elements of time being used, some light supernatural type stuff I would say is present here. Very, very light, but it is something that is, you know, part of the story. Now, when it comes to the visual aesthetic of the game, you know, we talked about it looking quite nice, but I have noticed, you know, there is visual fidelity that has been kind of downgraded on this one in comparison to the Series X. Like, maybe downgraded isn't fair, but, you know, you can notice that some things load in a little bit slower within the environment. The visuals are not quite as sharp, but it does seem to be quite fluid. It does seem to provide a pretty good experience. Gameplay-wise, it does seem to be running decently well. I did notice that there were some issues like doing the DVR recording on this one, so I actually had to go and record it another way to capture the gameplay. So if you're using the DVR, you might notice some problems recording. A weird thing, not part of my review, but just something I observed when I was going to work on this. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, you know, they got a selection of different levels, different chapters for you to work through, different combative scenarios. I think you can have fun here, you know? It's got some big set pieces, it's got some crazy action. It is, value-wise, I think, you know, you look at the time that this provides in regards to the costs and stuff, and I think it's not too bad in comparison to other shooters of the day. It's just got, you know, crazy set pieces that I was just mentioning there. It's got some wild, over-the-top moments. This campaign is a bit more in, like, the outback of this, like, rocky location. There's some mines and stuff. And then the second one, Spectre, is a lot more of like a semi-futuristic, you know, city environment. It's a little bit more sleeker, a little bit more action-focused. It's neat, the two. They definitely have very different vibes to them, and I think together, I actually did enjoy what they have to offer gameplay-wise. I think you can find them to be quite neat and just something easygoing to play and work through. There are different difficulty settings as well. I'm on recommended, which is normal, but nothing too hard. I mean, if you're just kind of working through it at a fine pace, an easygoing pace, you're not really going to have too much difficulty with this one. So this is like the bullet time thing, so this is kind of a cool slow-mo aesthetic that's going on. Very hyper-stylized, it lets you place shots and stuff. I think that was kind of a fun little ability that you can unleash and use while you're playing this, so that's kind of neat. And it is very linear, don't expect any sort of like real flanking or anything like that. But as I was mentioning with the perspectives, that shift is kind of neat. Because at one point, you know, you can be basically at one character spot, and the next you can be doing some like, you know, sniping and that. And I thought that was kind of cool. And again, very stylistic in its presentation and its characters. And there are some real mind-playing sequences, and I would like to see this actually expanded upon. I think if they did further little, you know, episodic type chunks of story going forward, I would actually be intrigued in checking those out and seeing where they push things further. But I don't really think that any of the characters were too necessarily, like, I guess you would say memorable or anything. It was almost a little bit hard to keep track of the campaign to a degree. By the end of the first one, I was like, I don't really remember these guys. And then you get to the second one, and it's a very, very different setup, and you're like, huh? But it's basically just these two, like, factions and ideologies that are sort of, you know, competing and fighting and that. And it's like one's more of a military presence, and one's more of like a, you know, the rebelling presence and stuff, which is intriguing because I almost connected more with the government type forces to a degree. I was just kind of like, this is a very weird scenario on both sides. But yeah, you're just kind of like thrust into this world where it's clearly established what things are going on and everything like that. It's neat. Like, again, I didn't mind it. It does, overall, this game come across as generic at times. For sure, with Counter-Strike infused aesthetics, that, like, you know, inspiration and stuff for this one. But yeah, no, it's still kind of, is it not cleared? Am I missing somebody? But it can be enjoyable. I don't really have too many, you know, problems with this one gameplay-wise. If anything, actually, I find it kind of funny that the campaign seems to have some more mechanics than, you know, some of the multiplayer stuff, like the sliding there, which is kind of funny because it's only for, like, the Boogeyman character. But, ow. Yeah, I don't know. I thought the campaign was okay. I liked it. I wasn't, like, blown away by it. I don't think I'll revisit it. You know, I'll probably delete it and whatnot once I've done all this coverage here. But I do appreciate the time I had with it. I just, yeah, it's kind of almost a little bit forgettable as well, right? Like, you're just working through it like a linear thing, you know, something from the past, and that's okay. Not every game needs to be like the craziest thing in the world. Sometimes it's fine to just sit here, work through it, and just be like, alright, cool, I had fun, moved on. You know, it was a good time, it was like, okay. Whoa, big booms, crazy action, lots of particle effects. Yeah, it really doesn't seem too, like, the whole experience is here, right? Like, it plays the stuff the same as the Series X version, we just don't have, like, the visual kind of choices, but, you know, the whole thing is just here, and yeah, I can't say I have too many real complaints about this one's campaign in comparison to the Series X. That's for sure. I actually kind of appreciate some of the fact that it doesn't seem too totally toned down. There's a camera there, which is, I think, is like a collectible, isn't it? Well, this was a collectible if you destroy that. I'm pretty sure that's a camera. There we go. So there's like 30 cameras you could shoot down. Surprised they don't know my every move, considering there's cameras everywhere. Anyways, yeah, so we're going to move to this next segment, and then we're going to be flopping over to the multiplayer, of course, because we're going to be talking about that. So I hope this kind of gave you an idea of how, you know, the campaign is running, how it's looking, the combat, the movement, and the tweaking between doing, you know, cinematic bits, doing regular gameplay bits, and what it has to offer. I think you could find this one to be semi-intriguing, somewhat fun. something a little bit different to do, and just another shooter that you can enjoy with some crazy over-the-topness. So this is the free-to-play multiplayer portion of CrossfireX. We have two modes. We've got two game modes. We've got a modern and we've got a classic. So in the modern, you get things such as ADS, which is aim down sight, and some other movement mechanics. With classic, you are doing hip firing, and they both have different modes and maps. So each of the modes only has a single map attached to it, which, you know, again, for this game in general, I feel like it is severely lacking in content. It's very, very bare bones gameplay-wise. That being said, I do actually kind of like the multiplayer. I do find it a little bit of fun to play. I just wish it had more to it. So it does look pretty good, but when we go to the options, it is neat that once again, unlike the Series X version, we have no secondary graphics option. You can change your crosshair settings if you'd like to, but yeah, we have no graphics choices. So you can actually go to the back button here and see the menu there, where we have a FPS kind of meter going on. So what's neat is that it's now saying 60. So I initially tried to record this using the Xbox DVR. It was actually saying something more like 70 FPS. So I'm thinking this might actually have some level of uncapped frame rate going on, where it could go up higher, but 70 FPS is kind of like the lock. It doesn't seem to be able to go higher. So it could be like a target 120, but hitting nowhere near that. And I think that aspect is actually quite interesting, is the fact that, you know, that they did actually aim for something a little bit higher. Because as you can see here, it's clearly like 60-something. And when they were, again, when I was trying to do it with the DVR, and I had up to 120 being unlocked. When I do the DVR recording, that's just regular recording. When I record with this method, I do use a pass-through device, which caps it at 60. So it does seem like there is a higher threshold for FPS on this console, but it's nowhere near what the option is on the Series X. So once again, I think it's like 1080 we're looking at here, and possibly uncapped up to, you're getting at least 60 FPS in this experience. So it is smooth. It doesn't seem to really have issues when it comes to the, you know, I guess you would say the performance and whatnot, and it does look pretty good. It does look decently sharp. It's not too bad visually. I do notice that there are some more things where some elements kind of like don't load in as quite as well, and a little bit more like this sort of they're using a pixel technology for some of the assets, which is quite neat. But, you know, for those ones, it's like there's like these black dots that almost kind of pop up, and you notice them when it's trying to, like, in the far distance, it's trying to like lower the load on the console. When you get closer, it like sharpens up. But in general, it just seems like the, you know, the texturing and stuff isn't as sharp. I think it still visually and aesthetically looks really, really good. I do actually think this game looks quite gorgeous. You know, you can kind of say whatever you want about the gameplay, shooting, and everything like that, but visually, I think this does look fine. So I have mentioned, you know, it's Counter-Strike-esque. For sure, definitely Counter-Strike inspired, because the Crossfire series comes from that kind of inspiration back in the day. And it just, like, what are these guys doing? It's like they're not even playing the other team, which is kind of funny. And the spawn killing is atrocious in this. Absolutely atrocious. And all they did was like throw a turret in the way. But yeah, so like I was saying, gameplay-wise, it feels quite generic. There are some issues with the ADS, which is aim down scope, but they did address that they are working on fixing that, so that problem should be fixed really soon. So it might actually not even be a problem when you go to play this, depending on when you know, watch the video and everything like that, so keep that in mind. And then, you know, also the map thing is they are releasing several maps in the real near future, so that could also not be a problem. But for now, you know, well, let's talk about the two modes. So we've got Modern, which I mentioned. So Control, which is what we're playing now, is one of the Modern modes. And again, this is the only map that's available for this mode, just like all the others. And yeah, you get the ADS and everything. The second is Search and Destroy, with actually large player counts, and that feels really good, looks really good. I quite liked, you know, the Search and Destroy there. I thought it was pretty well done. That's actually my highlight and my favorite part of the experience, doing the Search and Destroy. And then you go to Classic, and Classic continues the whole Search and Destroy. It's carried forward there. It's just, you know, obviously without the ADS, it's just hip-fire shooting. I wonder if there's still players there. I was wondering if they were all quitting. But yeah, that's carried through. So they got Search and Destroy with the same map, and then there's Team Deathmatch with a tiny, terrible rectangular map, like a cargo map area. So that's Team Deathmatch, which is kind of boring. And then they have this cool mode called Spectre, where it's like ghosts, kind of, where one faction is an invisible group trying to plant a bomb, like Search and Destroy, kind of. And then, why can't I become the boogeyman here? It's like it's glitching or something. And then the other faction is totally visible, and they're trying to eliminate the ghosts, and the ghosts just have, like, you know, basically like knives and stuff. It's pretty one-sided for the people that aren't ghosts, but it's still a cool concept. And then finally there is this like zombie mode that I think is like called Nova or something like that. It's really terrible, quite honestly. It's like Infection from like Call of Duty games and stuff, or like Halo. Halo Zombies, where it's just like, but it's weird, it's like a lot of stopping power, so it's like you get these really awkward scenarios where the zombies take a lot of bullets and they can't really get places because they like fall down, and it's just not very well done, in my opinion. I really don't like the zombies mode too well, and they're gonna nerf the Spooky Man character too, because it's just too powerful and too easy to get your hands on. So yeah, it's really high octane, over the top action, lots of combat. And see, here's the thing though, the maps are actually pretty good. They flow well, except for that Team Deathmatch map. That map is it's just terrible. And it's weird because it's like you could take one of the maps, like the Spectre map, the map for Spectre, and you could put it on like Deathmatch, you could put it on Search. There's not really a reason why you couldn't. It basically plays like Search and Destroy, the exact same. So it's a little peculiar why they would do that. But like, you know, it's so boring playing the same thing over and over again. I basically am down to just doing Search and Destroy. Usually I do Search and I'll just put this on too, but I'm basically down to just doing Search, and I'm just like bored to tears of the multiplayer. I have also streamed and played a lot of it, but it's something I'll probably go back to and revisit occasionally just for some fun matches. Again, it's a very generic multiplayer, very middle of the road for scoring. It's not like the greatest thing I've played. It's okay. It gets the job done. It's fine shooting. I think if they fix up, again, the kind of the aiming and the ADS stuff, and then they add maps, we'll have a solid game here. A really just like solid shooter. Not the best experience ever, but something that you can sit in and be like, ah, it's some fun, easygoing, free-to-play shooter stuff. You know, with some nice visuals and some different things going on. It's okay. And that's the biggest thing here to understand, is it's an okay game. Alright. You know, not every game needs to be the greatest game ever, and I'm totally fine with this one being just a run-of-the-mill, okay game. You know, there you go. That's basically the gist of it there. So there's also, like, in-game currency that you earn in order to unlock attachments, unlock weapon stuff. I think some characters, some stuff you gotta buy. I mean, again, it's a free-to-play, right? So it's kind of expected gameplay-wise. So just keep that in mind. But I think, you know, it's not too bad. It's okay. The progression felt fine for getting things, you know, I didn't ever have problems where I actually have like a surplus of different like accessories and different things I have available to me, and I just got lots of extra points, and it's like, yeah. There's also a battle pass, which feels quite grindy, the battle pass, but at the same time, there's like 50 tiers to it, so I don't know, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't really care too much for it, but it's just something that is present and something that is there. Kind of hoping this match ends a little bit faster so that we can show off a little bit of Search, but yeah, the multiplayer, it's okay. It's fine. It has some issues. Yeah, definitely. But just like the campaign, it's alright, you know? I can have some fun with this one. I see potential in it. I think on the Series S, you know, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty stylish visually and stuff. And I think they kind of, like, it's a aim for the mark, falling a little bit short of the mark, and then having a lot of issues because of that. Because I think, you know, again, it's just some extra content would have done wonders for this game. Absolute wonders for it. And I don't think there would have been as much negative response here at the launch as, you know, a situation where this actually had some content, some meat to the bone, because it's so bare bones. Like, there is not a whole lot going on in this game, which is disappointing. But you play it, and the shooting's fine, it feels fast, it feels a little visceral. I don't know, I think it kind of hits the mark there. I think it can be enjoyable. I think it can feel a little back and forth. If you get a balanced match, it could actually be pretty fun and intense, especially when you do Search and Destroy. But it really comes down to the type of player you are, and if this is something that you're going to have fun with or not. But that is, you know, again, basically Crossfire X. It's got combat, it's got some action, single player, multiplayer, and that is the overall experience.